Alright, so now I want to cut an opening for her neck. So when we sew it in the next tutorial, she'll be able to have an opening for her neck to come through, so it doesn't strangle her. So there's a few ways to create segment points. Let me just switch this to. These round things are called segment points. Oops. And to create a segment point, there's this tool, which is the Add Point Split Line tool. And anywhere you click, you're going to create a segment point. Segment points can be used to create, let's just click here and click here, to create these kind of sharp lines, or they can be converted to curve points to create rounded lines. So I'm going to show you first how to make her a V-neck, and then I'll show you how to make a curved neck. So as you hover over a line, you'll see this grayish dot following your cursor, and you'll also see two purple numbers of showing you what the new line length will be. So if I click here, you can see this line was split into two lines, and the right one is 280 point something, and this one is 119 point something. So if you want to get the perfect middle, if you want to split a line into two, equal segments, here actually, I just got it perfect, but let's say you can't, and sometimes it's very difficult, then the easiest thing to do is to right click, and you get a split line pop-up, showing you what line length 1, which is to the right, and what line length 2, which is to the left, will be. If you want to get it perfectly in the middle, the easiest thing is just to type in 50%, and there you've got it perfectly in the middle. There's also two more options. I'll cover this one first. Uniform split splits your one line into as many numbers as you put here. So 2 or 4, which create 4 splits, which is very useful when you want to do later things, where you sew different things onto it, and do different things, and you need something to be split into an equal number to make a pleat or to make some other kind of sewing thing. You can split it into even 8 or more if you need. So into 2 will create perfect middle. And split by length, I never really use it, but it probably has its use, like everything has. It's almost like uniform split, but not quite. So like I put my first point here, and we know this is 400. So let's say we want 100. So when I put 100, it's going to try to give me from this point to the left and to the right an equal length of 100. And then because this was a perfect 400, it also gave me the next line's 100. If I put, however, 120, it's going to attempt from this point to give me 120, and here whatever is left, and here whatever is left. So it's almost like from the point where you clicked to the left and to the right, it will give you that length, and then after that it will just give you whatever is left of it. And it will try to give it here, and then here it will be less. So if we put like 160, you'll see it tries to 160, and here's what's left. If you say reverse direction, it will do it the other way. So I want to add a point for my neck. I want to add a point around here, and a point around here, and then a point in the middle where I'll drag down the V-neck. So I'm just going to type in the length I want. This is 180, I think 140 will do. We should see. 140, yes. And then I'll do it on the other side too. So by going as close as I can to the 140, you see here it is on the right, 140. And then clicking, I can quickly type in the number I need. And then here in the middle, I'm just going to do a 50%. There it is, perfect. 50% split. Now to move the segment points, you have to go to the Edit Pattern tool. So I'm clicking on this point, and you can click on a few, or you can click even on lines and points by simply holding down Shift. So like Shift, and then you can move them both at the same time. I'm just going to select this one, and then by holding down Shift, you'll see this purple guides appearing, and it will snap it to it. To this one, to this one, to this one. I let go of Shift, and I can move it any way I want, but if I hold Shift, it will constrain it to either this line or to this line, or to the other lines. Then I'm just going to drag it down to around here. Now to create a curved neck from this, there's 3 ways actually to create curves. One would be to convert to curve point, and then you get a curved neck. The other would be, well, actually, let me show you what happens when you do a curved neck, and then if you wanted to change this a bit. So this is the edit curvature, which I think is like the simple curve because it doesn't have that much control. It's good for making simple curves, but it's not that good a control like its brother over here, which I'll cover in a second. So if you want to constrain it to, for example, that middle line, now I'm holding shift now, it doesn't work, it doesn't constrain it. You can pull it any direction you want, but if you want it to make it more rounded like that, and you try to, it's not really that helpful. It's not really working like you want to. You can try pulling around and then trying to stretch it, but it's not really working. Alright, when you switch to this tool, Edit Curve Point tool, you'll see the actual point where you clicked and where you set your segment point. Or if you didn't set a segment point, let's just delete this point a second, and you just use your curvature tool to drag out the neck. When you switch to Edit Curve Point, you'll see the point actually where you clicked to first drag it out, and you can then control that point and change it. I'm just going to delete that. So switching to Edit Curve Point, wherever you click, you can set a curve point. And now when you hold shift, you can actually constrain it just like you could for the segment point. You can also add more points to make the exact shape that you want. You can even add points to make, funky shapes like that. Let's undo that. And undo that one too. These points will disappear the moment you switched to curvature, Edit Curvature, or to any other transform tool. They won't show. They'll only show when you're on Edit Curve Point. See, that's why it has all these little points on the icon, because it's like to edit the curve points. And only then can you change them. Now if you wanted to have something very specific here, and it's hard to align these points symmetrically, then you could always change your grid size. Let's turn that on to 5. And that is very useful because you can zoom in, you can pan around, and then you can align your points on the same line, same square, to get a symmetric kind of V-neck, or curve neck, or whatever you call this thing. And you can use the Edit Curvature on any lines. You can use also the curvature on any lines. And it's really up to you what works best for you, though I do prefer using the Edit Curve Point just because I have so much more control over my curves. I'm going to quickly add her a hole for sleeves, and then we'll move on to the next tutorial where we'll start sewing together a dress. We'll copy patterns to make the back pattern, and we'll sew it together to make her a very basic dress. And I'll explain all about these sewing tools. Now I'm going to grab the split tool and make her an armhole. To get the exact length I need, I'm going to right click and type it into the pop-up box in length 1. OK, and repeat on the other side. Type it into length 2. OK, and there we've got the armholes. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.